Hello everyone, back at it again in my little gray crawdad. Just launched the crawdad, got everything squared away, and we're headed out onto the lake. We've got bluebird skies, just a few wispy clouds, but pretty much solid blue. It's morning, but we're getting towards late morning, probably around 7:30. Sun's getting high already. And we've got a west-northwest wind. So the game plan is, like most of my trips, to head out into the windiest part of the lake and see if we can put together a good bag of fish. Now these are not my favorite conditions for bass fishing. I don't like the blue skies, but at least we have some wind, and I do like the wind. So let's see what we can do. Alright, we made it across the lake, and to start out I'm going to be throwing a 110 whopper plopper in the bluegill color. This is kind of swinging for the fences here. It's a step down from Berkeley Chopo 120, but it's still a noisy bait, it's still a loud bait, and with these kind of conditions, no clouds, it's going to be tough for them to commit to a bait like this. But just out of the gate, I wanted to swing for the fences. If they'll go for it, it's a good way to cover water and catch some nicer fish. But honestly, I don't have high hopes. So I'm already thinking about a backup plan if they don't want to eat the whopper plopper. Now some 110s, the whopper plopper 110, they come with these heavy gauge hooks. Really heavy gauge, to the point where it's hard to set the hook with a moderate power rod. So I swap out those hooks to some round bend, just a normal gauge wire. Owner makes some good hooks. Gamakatsu makes some good hooks. I like those Berkeley Fusion 19 round bend trebles. Sometimes if the fish are throwing the whopper plopper, I'll switch to some Owner ST35s, which are actually crankbait hooks. But they've got a slick gray finish on them. They penetrate well and they hold well. Anyway, I just don't like the really thick, heavy wire, because if the fish are just slapping at the bait, they have a tendency to just bounce off those thick hooks and not actually get a hook in their mouth. So the fish wouldn't go for the whopper plopper, and I had to switch to walking bait. Originally I had on a vixen, one of the original vixens, which is kind of a special bait for me since they don't make that exact bait anymore. The newer ones, they're close, but they're not exactly the same. But the vixen's kind of loud, and I wanted something more subtle. So I put on an Evergreen JT 115. And it's a walking bait, but it has no rattles, has no knocker, no weight transfer. So it's much, much more subtle than other walking baits, even smaller walking baits. And it gets fish to bite when they don't seem to want to eat topwater. I could have cast over that rocky shoal with the whopper plopper for an hour and not gotten a bite. I switched over to the JT 115 and just a few casts and I got a smallmouth. Now he's not a big guy, but it tells me I'm on a path. And that path is more subtle, more subdued, not loud. The fish is not subdued at all. The fish is going crazy. Smallmouth and 3 sets of treble hooks can be an issue, and that fish is still pretty green. But I will get the lip grippers on him and get those hooks out of him, and then he'll be free to go. But anyway, with bluebird skies, I want to move away from loud baits and more towards subtle, silent, natural kind of baits. And I took the first baby step here with this silent walking bait. It's a good looking bait. When I first got it, I did a review on it as part of a tackle unboxing. And it wanted to dive underneath the surface of the water. And I thought I could correct that by adding a feathered treble on the rear hook. So that's what I did. I put a dressed treble that I dressed myself with crystal flash, just to offer some resistance on the back end of that walking bait. There he is, nice smallie. And that did the trick. Now that bait doesn't want to dive under the surface of the water. I've got a loop knot on the nose. Walks great, casts great. And it caught me a fish. So let's do that again. This is my second cast after that smallmouth. Walking that bait. Walk the dog, walk the dog. And I had a fish blow up on it right there. And he missed it. You know, I missed him, but really he missed the bait. So there's a couple things you can do in this situation. You could cast back the same bait. But that fish, you know, if he really committed to it, he would have got that bait. There's 3 sets of trebles on there. They're all sharp. So in these situations, especially with these Bluebird skies, I like to cast back something else. And that could be something more subtle, like a Neko rig or a reverse rig or a drop shot, a Ned rig, some follow-up bait like that. What I had handy was a Zoom Super Fluke in electric shad. That's a great all-around color. If I could only have one color, that would be it. And that's because it kind of looks like a bluegill. It kind of looks like a herring. It kind of looks like a lot of different things. And I like it best on partly cloudy, partly sunny days. If it was all clouds, I like an albino shad. And my favorite for these kinds of conditions, I just didn't have it tied on, is disco violet. It's a real subtle color. But as you can see, the electric shad got it done. Could have been the same fish. I think that was the same fish that blew up on the JT-115. It wasn't a really big largemouth, and that could have been part of the problem. You know, he just isn't really big enough to get that whole bait. But the fluke got him, the follow-up fluke. I think I need my pliers to get that hook out. By the way, that's a Gamakatsu G Finesse hybrid worm hook. Those hooks run a little bit large, so that's a 3/0 hook for a regular super fluke. Normally, for other hook manufacturers, I'd use a 4/0. Like a Mustad grip pin 2X fine wire, I use a 4/0 in that. For whatever reason, the Gamakatsu hooks run large, so a 3/0 is plenty for a Zoom Super Fluke. That last fish damaged my bait, but I'm going to save it and use mended at home on those Super Flukes. I just use them again and again and again. I stack up old Super Flukes, and when I have a pile of about a dozen or so, I use mended to glue them back together. And as long as the fish don't completely shred them or rip off the tail, you can use those flukes again and again and again and again. Some of the flukes I've been using for over a year now. And that's the disco violet color. That's the color I really like in these conditions. I just had the electric shad tied on already. I'm looking for one that's a little bit straighter. Some of them get, I don't know, a little bit messed up in the packaging after a while. And you just Texas rig it, going through the nose, about 1/4 inch. Try to get that hook as straight as possible. I'm going to line it up, put my thumbnail where I want that hook point to come out. You go in through the belly. The belly slot's a little bit glued up because I used Mended on this bait before and it glued the belly slot a little bit. But that's alright. All rigged up, ready to go. I threw around that JT115 for a little bit more, but I couldn't get any more fish on it. And then my backup bait, the Zoom Super Fluke, became my primary bait. It's very subtle. Obviously it's got no rattles, it's quiet. I fish the Fluke more aggressively than some other soft plastic jerk baits. To me, it's all about generating a reaction bite with the Fluke, the Super Fluke. Some other baits, like I'm thinking of the Caffeine Shad, that bait I fish really slowly. You can fish it fast too, but I think it shines when you fish it slowly. The Fluke I almost always fish fast. I'm trying to get those fish to commit, and it was a little hard to see on camera, but I saw a fish following it, just a dark shadow. The fish in my net was following it, and I slowed down just a tick, and he ate it on the pause. They like that color. They like that Super Fluke under these conditions. Yeah, not bad. We're getting there. See ya, fish. One little trick that I do with my Super Flukes is I add some kind of scent to them. This is Smelly Jelly Sticky Liquid Herring Scent. And this stuff really is sticky. I keep it in a Ziploc so it doesn't make a mess of my tackle crate. Just a few drops will do it. Back in the Ziploc bag it goes. And if the fish are a little hesitant, sometimes that can get me another bite, especially on the pause. And I think it helps. Certainly doesn't hurt. All right, this is a few casts later. This offshore rocky shoal area goes on for quite a ways. We've got a marker buoy on the high spot, but it's actually a pretty long shoal. So I'm trying to work most of the shoal, but especially the edges where it drops off to deeper water. I've got a little bit of a ripple pushing bait towards the shoal from deeper water, and the fish seem to stack up on the deeper side waiting for our bait or bluegill or Super Flukes to come by, and then they pounce on them and eat them. That's how you want them to eat it though. That hook's way down there. Now that could be the color, it could be the scent, could be a combination of things.
We're getting there.
Whatever it is, it's working. So that tells me I've got a good presentation, I've got a good color. I should probably stick with this for a little bit. A couple casts later, still fishing the Super Fluke. It's actually a jerkbait rod. It's a 610 medium X-Pride, the X-Pride A. They have a newer series out now, the X-Pride B. I've heard they're very similar, the A and the B versions. Ooh, that was a nice jump. But I've got the original with the cork handles, and it works just fine for me.
It's small.
We got a jumper. Get him in the net. I think that's another smallmouth. Smallmouth gets so fired up. The largemouth are docile in comparison. That smallmouth had the Super Fluke down its throat too. That's how you want him to eat it. It's kind of a pain sometimes to get him unhooked, but it's just a single hook in there. He's not hooked badly, it's just hooked deep. Get my forceps and get him on his way. I like having both the pliers and the forceps handy. There he is.
That's nice.
It's kind of an odd shape, like a torpedo or something. Wind's picking up now a little bit more. I like that, but it does make boat positioning a little bit more difficult. I don't have spot lock on this boat. I don't have raptors. I don't have talons. I don't have much of anything on this boat. But it works for me. I like keeping it light, keeping it simple. There's another one. He's not a giant, but we're putting together a pattern here. That's another smallmouth too. Sometimes the smallies like these bluebird days. They're sight feeders, and I think sometimes the bright sun can help them. But they can also get really fussy too. Here's a closer look at that super fluke I was fishing in the disco violet color. That's my favorite color for these kind of conditions. I had to relocate from the rocky shoal area. At a certain point, the wind gets to be too much for boat control, and I'm fighting the boat, fighting the wind, and I can't present the baits the way I want to. So I had to relocate. That's okay. This area right here doesn't have quite as much wind as I'd like, but I thought it was worth a try. I was headed in this direction anyway. There we go. Nice cast with a super fluke. Fishing kind of a rocky point in a channel. It's a good ambush spot for the bass. You can see some old beds underneath me. I was hoping there'd be a fish just off from those spawning beds. These fish are mostly post-spawn now. Almost all of them, I guess. And I got another bass. That looks like a largemouth. Got my thumb on him. Still eating it pretty well. Grab my forceps for a speedier release. The G-Finesse hook sticks him pretty well. Might need the pliers for this one. That hook is in there. Alright, finally. Give him a dunk. There he is. Nice little bass. Thanks for playing, bud. Alright, I moved to the other side of the channel. Made a long cast towards a dock with a pontoon boat at the other end. And there's a shade line here too. So it's a good spot. There's a channel here. There's docks. There's boats. There's shade. And I was able to pull out one more fish. Where'd he go? There he is. Get him in the net. That one didn't eat it quite as well as some of the others, but good enough. Hook just fell out. There he is. Nice little bass. Alright, I had a nice morning out here, floating around, fishing in the wind with these bluebird skies. Just had to make a few adjustments, and I caught a bunch of fish. I think if I stayed with that whopper plopper the whole time, I don't know if I would have caught a single fish. So with bluebird skies, I like more subtle, quiet, natural baits. The Zoom Super Fluke was definitely the star of today. I didn't have to go to BFS because I have the wind. Without any wind, I definitely go with BFS. The JT115 got me one smallmouth early, and I missed another one, but then I followed up with a fluke, and I think I caught that same fish. So that was pretty good. Anyway, good trip overall. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. just like all my other videos, I'll list all of today's gear in the video description so you can duplicate exactly what I was doing today. Lures, rods, line, reel, colors, all that will be in the video description. And hopefully you can have some success on your home lake wherever you are. Catch a bunch of fish too in Bluebird skies. I'll catch you on the next one. See ya!